Good evening, and welcome back to the Midnight Fire. Tonight, we dim the lights and venture down a long, dark corridor into a story that will make you question every shadow you see. This is the shadow at the end of the hallway. Our story begins with Leo, a young artist who just moved into a pre-war apartment building in the city. He was ecstatic. The rent was a steal, the place had character, high ceilings, original hardwood floors, and a long, narrow hallway that stretched from the front door to the living room. It was this hallway that first captured his imagination, and soon, his fear. The first week was a blur of unpacking boxes and settling in. But as the initial excitement wore off, Leo started noticing things. A cold spot near the end of the hallway that never seemed to warm up. The faint, almost imperceptible sound of whispering when the apartment was silent. He brushed it off as the quirks of an old building, the city settling around him. One night, working late on a painting, he got up to get a glass of water. As he stepped into the hallway, he froze. At the far end, silhouetted against the faint glow from the streetlights filtering through the living room window, stood a figure. It was tall, impossibly thin, and utterly featureless, a pure, deep shadow that seemed to absorb the light around it. His heart hammered against his ribs. He blinked, expecting it to vanish. It didn't. It just stood there, motionless. He fumbled for the light switch, flicking it on. The hallway was instantly flooded with a harsh, yellow light. And it was empty. There was nothing there. Just the peeling wallpaper and the worn floorboards. Leo's breath came in ragged gasps. He told himself it was exhaustion, a trick of the light, his mind playing games after hours of staring at a canvas. He tried to forget it, but the image was seared into his memory. The sightings became more frequent. Every few nights, he'd catch a glimpse of it. Always at the end of the hallway. Always silent. Always still. It never moved closer, but its presence felt like a weight, a suffocating pressure in the air. He started avoiding the hallway at night, taking the long way around through the kitchen if he could. Sleep became a luxury he could rarely afford, his nights filled with a gnawing dread. He started researching the building's history, digging through old city archives and newspaper clippings online. Most of it was mundane ownership changes, minor renovations. But then he found it, a small article from the 1950s. It detailed a tragic event in his very apartment. A man, a reclusive writer, had lived there. The article was vague, but it mentioned he had vanished from his home. The police found all his belongings, a half-finished manuscript on his desk, but no sign of the man himself. He was never seen again. The last line of the article sent a shiver down Leo's spine. It quoted a neighbor who said the writer had become obsessed with the shadows in his home, claiming one of them was watching him. Now, Leo understood. He wasn't just tired. He wasn't imagining things. He was sharing his apartment with whatever had taken that writer. The shadow wasn't just a passive observer, it was waiting. The realization didn't bring comfort, only a deeper, more profound terror. He tried to ignore it, to live with it. He hummed brighter lights in the hallway, even placed a mirror at the end, hoping to disrupt the space. But the shadow remained. Sometimes, he'd see its reflection in the mirror, a dark void where a person should be. The whispers grew louder, clearer. He could almost make out words, formless phrases that seemed to slither into his mind. Leo's art began to change. His vibrant cityscapes were replaced by dark, abstract pieces dominated by long, distorted figures and dark corridors. His friends grew concerned. He looked gone, haunted. He tried to explain, but the words sounded insane even to his own ears. A shadow. A watching shadow. They told him he was overworked, stressed. They suggested he take a break, maybe see a doctor. One evening, as a storm raged outside, the power flickered and died. The apartment was plunged into absolute blackness. Leo's emergency flashlight cast a weak, trembling beam. He was in the living room, but he knew he had to get to the front door. He had to get out. The only way was down the hallway. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, he stepped into the oppressive darkness of the corridor. He pointed his flashlight toward the far end. And there it was. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just standing there. It was closer. Much closer. It had moved. For the first time, it had broken its silent vigil. It was now halfway down the hall, a towering silhouette of pure nothingness. Panic seized him. He couldn't scream. The sound was trapped in his throat. He started backing away, his feet tangling in his haste. The beam of his flashlight shook violently, making the shadow seem to dance and writhe. He could feel a palpable cold radiating from it, a cold that seeped into his bones. The whispering was no longer faint, it was a cacophony in his head, 1,000 voices speaking at once, their words indistinguishable but their intent clear. Hunger, loneliness, a desire to consume. He stumbled backward, falling into the living room. The flashlight clattered from his hand, its beam spinning wildly across the ceiling before settling on the hallway entrance. The shadow was there, filling the doorway, its form seeming to stretch and bend, defying the laws of space. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was a presence, a conscious entity. Leo scrambled away, crawling backward across the floor until he hit the far wall. He was trapped. The shadow flowed into the room, a tide of darkness that blotted out the faint city glow from the window. It moved without a sound, a silent, creeping void. As it loomed over him, he saw, for a fleeting second, something within the blackness. Countless pairs of eyes, all staring, all filled with an ancient, soul-crushing despair. They were the eyes of others it had taken. And they were welcoming him. The last thing Leo saw was the shadow extending a formless limb toward him. The last thing he felt was an icy touch that didn't just chill his skin but extinguished the very warmth of his soul. Then, there was only darkness. The next morning, the building superintendent let himself into the apartment to check on the power outage. The lights were back on. He found the apartment empty. All of Leo's belongings were there. A half-finished painting sat on the easel, a terrifying canvas of a dark figure consuming a room. On the floor lay a single flashlight, still faintly glowing. But of Leo, there was no trace. He had simply vanished. To this day, the apartment remains empty. Renters come and go, none staying more than a few weeks. They all complain of the same things, an unnerving cold, the feeling of being watched, and a dark, fleeting shape they sometimes see, standing silently, at the end of the hallway. Thank you for joining us on the Midnight Fire. Look over your shoulder, check those dark corners, and whatever you do, don't stare too long into the shadows. They might just be staring back. Until next time, stay safe and sleep well. If you can, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from the dark. Good night.